Greetings and salutations, my dearest friends. My name is Samantha, and today I'm going to be doing the historical romance readers tag. Jessica from Peace Love Books created this tag, which is so amazing. I feel like Jessica is like our historical romance queen. I just love her and her content so much. I also host a historical romance book club with her called the Historical Hellions. Shameless plug. We read old historical romances published before the year 2000, and our whole vibe is just loving and appreciating old school historical romances. Shameless plug, shameless plug. She just posted this tag today, and immediately I knew I wanted to do it. So as soon as I got off of work, I put on some makeup and I'm here to do this tag. If you are new to my channel, hi, my name is Samantha. I love all things romance, but specifically my brand, my vibe, my love, my heart and soul belongs to historical romance in particular. So a little backstory about how I started reading historical romance. I actually started reading the genre because of the historical romance readathon that Lisa from Remarkably Lisa, Lacey from Lacey Book Lovers, and then of course Jess from Peace Love Books. They created this wonderful readathon. I think they've done like 3 different versions of this readathon, but originally I started reading it back in March of 2020, so it's kind of like my year anniversary of reading historical romance. How fun. I think I started reading maybe just like a little bit before that, but that's when I started to like really dive deep into my channel and also into reading historical romance. So much love for those girls and that readathon and this community. So I was super stoked to see that us historical romance readers have our own tag now. So let's get started. I've done enough rambling. The first question is, what was the first historical romance that you ever read? And this is easy. Is Suddenly You by Lisa Kleypas. You will hear Lisa Kleypas mentioned a lot on my channel and a lot on this tag. She's one of my favorite authors of all time. I just jive really well with her writing. This was one of the first historical romances that I read because Lacey from Lacey Book Lovers raved about how she loved Lisa Kleypas, and I found this one at my used bookstore for $1. Well, not this copy. This is the new edition that Avon did. But I found this copy for $1 and I picked it up and my life was never the same. This is one of Lisa Kleypas' few standalones. It follows our main character who is gearing up on her 30th birthday, and she is a virgin. So she decides to treat herself to some male company, a male escort, if you will. That's how she ends up meeting our hero. He shows up at her doorstep and she mistakes him for a male escort. In reality, he's a publisher who wants to publish her book, and it follows their romance. It is very steamy, very sweet, and it has a very strong heroine. I think I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars when I first read it, and I still stand with that rating. I think this is a great historical romance if you're just starting with historical romances and if you love strong heroines. Second question is, what is the last historical romance that you've read? And I think it was All Scott and Bothered by Kerrigan Byrne. This is the second book in the Devil You Know series. It follows our hero Ramsey, who is a Lord Chief Justice for the High Court, and he is following the disappearance of some young ladies, and that is how he meets our heroine. Our heroine inherits this like gambling hell, and there's a lot of secrets tied to that, and she needs to figure out what happened to all of these ladies, and they work together. Each of their individual personalities and their romance and their chemistry is so good and so well written. I gave it a 5 stars, which is conducive to Kerrigan Byrne. I like almost everything I've read from her. So yeah, I think that was the last historical romance I read. I've kind of took a break from reading. I need to kind of get back into it, but my brain has been a million other places. The next question is, who is an underrated historical romance author that you wish more people read? I do have a video on this. I listed some authors that I just wish got more love, so I will link that down below. But one author I want to talk about is Christy Caldwell. I don't want to sound like a broken record because I talk about her a lot, but I don't feel like anyone else does, and she is such a phenomenal writer. And not only that, but almost all of her books are available on Kindle Unlimited with the audiobook. Like, just so many good books to read and listen to if you have the Kindle Unlimited service. So highly recommend her. My favorite series that she does is the Wicked Wallflower series. I believe there's 5 books total in that series. First book is The Hellion. This book is an enemies to lovers romance, and it definitely gives me Romeo and Juliet vibes because our characters come from 2 opposing families. Each of their families own gambling hells and they're competitors, and they've always just been rivals. So it is a pretty heavy enemies to lovers romance with the same theme of having like a strong heroine. Cleopatra, who is our heroine in this book, I love her. I adore her. She's so sassy and saucy, and I love their relationship so much. The chemistry between them two is fire. Next question is, who is a historical romance author that you haven't read yet but need to? So many, like, look at the shelves behind me. I have so many books I need to read, but an author that I'm desperate to get to is Sabrina Jeffries. I have at least 15 of her books because the covers and the stories just draw me in, but I haven't read her yet. The book that I'm holding is The Pirate Lord. Something about Sabrina Jeffries' books are just so intriguing, and I found almost all of her books at my used bookstore for an incredible price, so I need to read her. I just need to do it. Maybe my next author binge will be Sabrina Jeffries. Sorry if I'm looking down. I have all the questions written right here. So the next one is, what historical romance would you recommend to people who are new to the genre? So I say this often, and the number one historical romance that I would recommend for newbies is Indigo by Beverly Jenkins. For me, this book is like a masterpiece. It is a love letter to historical romance. It has anything you could ever want in a romance. Characters' love for each other is just so beautiful. The plot is very intense, and like you are immediately drawn in to what the characters are going through. It is also an amazing audiobook. This is one of the very few books that I've reread. I've reread this book 3 times, twice on audio and once reading it physical, because I just enjoy it so much. I think Beverly Jenkins, she's a popular historical romance author. So many people recommend her, but for good reason, because she is just fabulous. The way that she intertwines culture and history with this beautiful love story, like chef's kiss, just magnifique. I haven't even described the book to you, but I feel like I've talked about this book so much. But it follows our main character. Her name is Hester, and it is taking place during the Underground Railroad. Our heroine is a member of the Underground Railroad, and that is how she meets our hero under his moniker, the Black Daniel. He is kind of like a vigilante for people of color and saving men, women, and children. They meet and they end up working together, and it follows their romance, and it is beautiful. The next question is hard, and that is, what is your favorite historical romance of all time? Of course, Indigo, anything by Beverly Jenkins. But if I had to say what my favorite historical romance is, do you guys know what it is? Can you take a guess? Leave a comment down below if you know what my favorite historical romance is, because I haven't shut up about it since I read it, and that is Again the Magic by Lisa Kleypas. I love this book so much. I just filmed a reading vlog rereading this book to like justify that this was my favorite, and yes, it is. So here's the step back for it. It is so stunning, just perfect. What can I say about this book? It is a prequel to the Wallflower series. You definitely don't have to read that series in order, but I, again, think it's more enjoyable if you do. Have read that series, but you haven't read the prequel. This features Marcus's 2 sisters, so it does have 2 love stories in it, but the main story follows my sweet baby McKenna, my favorite hero of all time, and Eileen. It is an angsty, beautifully written second chance romance, and it kind of features a romance of these 2 people who come from 2 different classes. Eileen comes from a family who holds a noble title, and then McKenna is a stable boy, so their love is pretty forbidden. Her father definitely doesn't agree with it. Because of that, there is a lot of things that tear them apart. Like I said, it's very angsty second chance romance, but I just think it is beautiful. It's amazing. The next question is, do you prefer new or old school historical romances? And I'm going to say both. I know that's kind of like a cop-out, but I just genuinely enjoy reading romance in general. And there was someone who had said that you have to read old historical romances to really appreciate new historical romances, and I think that's so true, because you get to see like where the tropes originated from, and you get to see a lot of a change in writing. I know that there are some problematic elements with some old school historical romances as far as consent goes, and like for me, consent is everything. If a book has lack of consent, I almost automatically rate it a 1 or 2 star. That's just something that I don't enjoy reading about. But in the same token, there are some lovely gems in the old school historical romance genre. That is why me and Jessica started that book club, because we really wanted to find those gems. So I think I would say both. I like both new and old school. I can't pick. I can't choose. Number 8 is, what is your favorite historical romance trope? I love a good marriage of convenience. I love two characters being paired together out of pomp and circumstances, like if a girl is ruined or someone needs an inheritance. I love it, because then they're like married and then they have to like fall in love with each other after, and I don't know, I love it. That kind of have that trope is Devil in Winter by Lisa Kleypas, A Beastly Kind of Earl by Mia Vinci. Really like Marriage of Conveniences, and that is like predominantly a historical romance trope. You don't see it a lot in contemporary. Another one that I really enjoy is total left field, and this is very specific, so stay with me. I enjoy historical romances where a heroine is a lady of the night, a prostitute, a madam, something, because it is like polar opposite of like the shy virginal wallflower, so different from like what society deems appropriate in that time, and I love it. I just love it so much. So an example of this would be Destiny and Surrender by Beverly Jenkins. That has a surprise pregnancy trope. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. It's part of the Destiny series. Our main character, Billy, is a lady of the night, a prostitute, and that is how she meets our hero, Andrew. Obviously, she ends up becoming pregnant, but she doesn't tell him right away. She decides to take kind of responsibility for it. But a year later, she and her son are threatened, so she ends up telling our hero, Andrew, so that her son can get some protection. But I just love that she is like unabashedly herself. Not only like sexually, but also just in her personality and in her views. And I love a strong heroine. So I love that one. And then Spitfire by Christy Caldwell, that is a part of the Wicked Wallflower series. Our heroine is a courtesan. I realize I have read that word, but I've never said it out loud. And I don't think I pronounced it right. I'm so sorry. Our heroine is, again, so just confident and powerful in this book. She ends up meeting our hero. She actually saves him and nurses him back to health. He is jumped in the streets of London, and she finds him and nurses him back to health. Well, turns out that he is a duke, and she doesn't really like noblemen or polite society. They end up parting ways, and he accidentally sends her a cease and desist letter for her business, which is an opera house. He works for Parliament, and he sends her this letter to close her opera house down, and she gets real pissed off. And I just love her fire, and I love her passion. I love this book so much because it's like the opposite. So our heroine is very experienced and confident, and our hero is actually a virgin hero who was saving himself for marriage, which you don't see often. I love a cinnamon roll hero. That's another trope I love. So yeah, that's a very specific trope that I like a lot. So if you are the same and you kind of like cinnamon roll heroes or heroines that are kind of like the polar opposite of a wallflower, leave some recommendations down below. Next question is, what are your favorite I'm filming? Okay. All right, love you. My sister came into the room. It's not a Samantha video if I don't pronounce something wrong and if someone doesn't interrupt me filming. So we're just going with the flow. The next question is, what are your favorite historical romance settings? I love a good ballroom. I do. I love polite society and noblemen, and maybe it's because I'm American and it's just not something that we get. I do love Regency London, I have to admit. I know that's the most popular trope, and it's such a small time period. It's only like 9 years in actual history, but I enjoy it so much. But I also love American historical romances, and maybe that's because Beverly Jenkins has really just brought me over to that vibe. But I love reading American historical romances as well. So yeah, those are my two favorite historical romance settings. I said I have a video where I broke down all the eras, like medieval time period, Regency time period, American time period, New Age, Golden Age, everything, and I gave recommendations for it, so I will link that video down below. Next up is, what is the oldest historical romance that I own? Okay, I had to tear my shelves up for this one. We talked about Kathleen E. Widowess, which I do have some of her books. This one is The Flame and the Flower. This one was published in, what year was this published? 1972. Like an OG historical romance author, you know, Kathleen E. Woodiwiss, Johanna Lindsey. They're kind of like the building blocks for the genre. I know that this book has some consent issues, which is why I've been very hesitant to read her books. Another one that I have that is pretty old is The Dragon and the Rose by Roberta Gellis. I got this in a mystery surprise box, like a mystery historical romance unboxing that I bought off of eBay. This one is published in 1977. So yeah, I actually have no idea what this is about. No idea. He had been hunted, betrayed, and attacked by his political enemies since the day he was born. He had conquered his fear of the constant danger surrounding him, but could he conquer the woman? I don't know if you need to conquer her, but okay. Could he conquer the woman he had agreed to wed, the woman who represented all he had learned to despise, the one who would profit most from his death? Well, that's interesting. I think this book has some consent issues, so maybe I won't read it. We're almost done. The next one is, what is your favorite step back? Ugh, this was the hardest question because I am a cover buy person 100%. I will absolutely buy some books for a cover. So the one I just love is Forever in Your Embrace by Kathleen E. Woodiwiss. I love this beautiful like watercolor. What the heck? Something like fell in my room and it scared me. But I love this beautiful watercolor on the front. And then you have this gorgeous step back. It looks like they're having like a bath, or maybe they're in a meadow. I don't know. You guys always know. Historical romances that have like a steamy bathtub scene. 10 out of 10. Another one isn't a step back. It's a cover, but I love it so much. And that is Where Passion Leads by Lisa Kleypas. I just love this book. It took me so long to track it down because it's out of print and it goes for ridiculous amounts on eBay and Amazon, but I found it for a good price. And just get into that cover. Get into it. Next question. What historical romance releases are you excited for? I don't know. I'm terrible at keeping up with new releases, especially historical romances. There's like so many old historical romances that I still need to get to. Like, I'm not even checking for the new ones. So, Kerrigan Byrne has another book that releases today, actually, the day that I'm filming this. It's the third book in the Devil You Know series, so I'm excited for that one. Yeah. Next, oh, this is the hardest question. I said the other ones were, but no, this one is hard. It is, what creators do you follow for specific historical romance recommendations? And the reason that's hard is because there's so many. This is a beautiful community. That is something I just want to say. There are so many talented people that contribute to the romance community, specifically historical romance community. I love their content. I love them. I created my channel for the books and my love of happily ever afters and romances, but I've really stayed for the community that the romance genre has built, if that makes sense. I constantly feel inspired and uplifted by so many amazing people. I will link a bunch of channels down below for you to follow. Of course, I have to mention the lovely ladies, I can't speak today, the lovely ladies who created the historical romance readathon. I think they have really brought historical romance to be a little bit more acceptable and less of a stigma, and for that I appreciate so much. So Jessica from Peace Love Books, who created this book tag, Lacey from Lacey Book Lovers, who is just the queen of Lisa Kleypas and book recommendations, and then Lisa from Remarkably Lisa, who is probably one of the funniest booktubers I follow. I love her humor, and she reads a ton. Like, this girl reads so many books. It constantly impresses me, and she's really good at finding underrated historical romances. I know there was a question that said, what is a historical romance author that you need to read? She has recommended so many to me. Maya Rodell, need to read her. Gosh, I could literally talk about channels I love in a whole video. Another one is Jen from the book Refuge. If you're looking for overly specific, like very specific book recommendations, Jen has a video for you. She goes in depth on different tropes and genres, and she is fan-freaking-tastic. She also reads a ton and is such a great resource for historical romances. If you guys are looking for an Instagram page, I would recommend Amanda from Talk About Swoon. The amount of effort and hard work it takes into her Instagram posts is astounding and so impressive and so appreciated. Every Tuesday she does something called Trope Tuesday, where she takes a trope and she gives recommendations. So she's done recommendations on diverse historical romances, on thick heroes and heroines and curvy heroines, and just like so many things that I just can't put into words. So I would recommend her. My good friend Crystal from Crystal Bookish Life, with her flaming red hair and her beautiful personality. I love her passion for romance. You can tell she has such a passion for talking about books, and she does it so well. Like, the way she'll break down a book and a relationship in a book is constantly just amazing. So, and she does so many reading vlogs. So if you like reading vlogs, I recommend her. So many people I'm just going to link everyone down below. Everyone gets linked down below because there's so many people in this community that are just positive and wonderful. And yeah, so that is the historical romance book tag. I hope you guys liked it. I hope you guys do this tag so I can watch it. If you have filmed this tag, let me know, and I would love to watch it. I would love to follow you. Would love to find more people who just like historic romance. So much fun filming this tag. As always, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to spend time with me. It means the absolute world to me. I hope you guys are all staying happy and healthy, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye!